Hello everyone to Tech Safari and welcome to the Coding Safari Swift for an iOS 12. So yeah, in this video we're going to see about variables. So first off, let's open our default project and let's go to the view controller as that's where we're going to type all the Swift code. And before we go into variables, let's explore what all are there in the view controller. So as you can see here at the top, we have a framework called a UI kit. So that is basically all the code required to connect with the storyboard. Next, we have something called a class. So here, a class is nothing but a group or a set of functions. So this particular class is called the view controller class, and as you can see it is derived from the UI view controller class, which is defined in the UI kit. So we define the opening and the ending of a code snippet using the opening parentheses and the closing parentheses. Next, in this class we have two functions. A function is basically a set of code that performs a specific function. So here this viewDidLoad function is already present in the UI view controller class. But since we are adding some code to it to perform a specific function that we like, we have to use the term override. And so this is a function, as I said, and in this function we have only a single line presently, that is super dot view did load. So here super dot view did load is a simple command that helps us to get access to all the variables present in this class, that is view did load. So that's much of it in the function. Next we have another function called did receive memory warning. Suppose if the app has been overused and there is so much of memory being used, then we can allow the user to clear the cache or something like that so that the app doesn't crash. That's about that function. And next, now let us come to know about variables. In general, a variable is an algebraic term that doesn't have a constant value. Defining variables in Swift is the easiest ever. So all you do, just give it a name, put an equal to sign, and specify its value. That's it. You have defined a variable in Swift. So in Swift we have many variable type such as ints, floats, longs, doubles, chars, booleans, and strings. So now let's get to know about how can we define them. So here we have two statements that help us to define a variable. That is a let command and a var command. You might be thinking, why do we have two for defining just a simple variable? So here a let command is used to define a variable that doesn't have to be changed when later in the code. Suppose I define a variable up there, and I suppose if I wanted to change it in another function, then I couldn't if I use the let function. So a let function is used to define a variable that value isn't changed or is constant. For example, I can take days of a number of days in a week. That would be always 7 in the planet Earth. It would be different on another planet, but on Earth it would be the same. So next, let us see about the var statement. As you can just guess, a var statement is the opposite of a let statement. It is used to define variables whose values need to be changed or they are not constant throughout the app. So it could be, say, my name. I could give my name to be Manas, whereas I could change it later to be Lakshit. So like that. So as I was saying, if we define this as a var, it would be totally possible. Now let us see how to define a specific type of a variable. So we could define it using var slash let variable name equals to variable value, and Swift would automatically choose which type of variable it is without we needing to choose what kind of variable is it and all that headache. So let's get to know about each variable type. So first we'll start off with the ints. So int is a short form for an integer. As you know, integers range from minus infinity 0 to plus infinity. So an int stores a 32-bit number or a 32-digit value. So a fine example of an int would most probably be, so as I was saying, a proper example for an int would be the above example, that is number of days in a week equals to 7. Next we have floats. So a float is nothing but a decimal, and it's going to store 32-bit decimals, and mostly we use floats for denoting values from 0 to 1, and as the first letter of float is f, we always have to give the value as 0.1 f or like that. We have to use the f at the end of the value. Next we have something called longs. A long is similar to an int, but it stores a large number of digits. It can store up to 64 digits. So an example would be number of seconds in 10 years. That would be around 24 into 365 into 60 into 60. Yeah. So when we want to store big variables like that, we would need to use a long. Next we have something called doubles. It's same as the relation between ints and longs as floats and doubles. It stores up very long doubles. Suppose if I wanted to say my favorite double is equals to 0 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 until infinity something. Then I could use doubles, but it only stores until 64 bit or 64 digit decimals. Next we have something called as a char. It stores a single character. It could be a letter, it could be a number, it can also store symbols, and the amazing part is it can also store emojis. Yeah, so that is about cars. So say an example would be the first letter in my name equals to M, or the first letter in the English alphabet will be A, or the value of 1 equals to the number or numeral 1, or I could even say happy equals to happy emoji, or person symbol is equals to person symbol, something like that. So a char can be used to store any digit, but it can only store any one digit or a single character. Next we have something called booleans. Those are the most easiest type of variables in Swift. They only store two values, true or false. Suppose if the app is running, I could set the variable to is app running equals to true, or I could even set it to false, and something like that. Next we have the next non-primitive type of variable. I'll just come to primitive variable types in a few minutes. So a string variable is nothing but a group of single chars combined together. So if I wanted to give some text or something like that, I could use a string variable to define it in my code. So let's say an example, say my name equals to Manas. That would be a proper example for a string. Or I could even say name and date of birth equals to Manas 08.08/24, something like that. I could even combine various types of characters as a string. So as you can see, we have defined a variable. So a primitive type is a basic type of variable, whereas a non-primitive variable is originally created from a primitive type of variable. So now let's try to define a basic integer. We'll define a basic string. Let name equals to Manas. I'm just going to define it as a let statement. And in a similar way, we can define any variable type. Let's define some more. Say var number of days in a week. Here we could also use let, and number of days in a week equals to 7. Again, I'll use the let statement, say for yeah, say is it May in month, and it's going to be true because it's May. And now, as you can see, it's a let declaration, so let's define one more variable. So yeah, now let's define a double. And yeah, I forgot to mention, when defining a double, we don't need to use the letter F or D at the ending. We just define it like that. So let pi value equals 3.14. Now let's try to print any of these variables. Print statement is used to display anything in the logs. It's just a simple statement, print, and in the brackets we can give whatever we want to print. So presently we'll try to print the variable, say name. Yeah, so I'll just type name in here. Not only that, I can even display any text in the log just by using the text in the double quotation marks. So now let's just print the name. I'll just change my name variable here. Yeah, now let's run the app. We need to enable developer mode on this Mac, so just enter your password and click on OK. And oops, yeah, iPhone 6 works better on my Mac, so I'll just switch to that. And the app is going to run in a few minutes. Yeah, here we have our simulator up and running. I'll just resize it to my screen size. Yeah, the simulator may take time depending on your system hardware for it to boot up. Usually takes around 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, we'll just test if we can change this pi value here. Okay. So suppose if I wanted to change the pi value, because I defined it as a let, it wouldn't allow me. It would give me an error saying that it's defined as a let statement and it's fixed. So let's just delete that. Suppose I define another variable, say let programming language equals yeah, Swift, obvious. And yeah, the emulator is almost booted up. Okay, yeah, it should print up my name is Manas in the logs. So yeah, the app has run and we have my name is Manas in the logs. So that's it about variables and printing statements. Play around with them, and in the next video we'll get to know about the different types of operations that we can do on these variables. Till then, bye.